coming up on this episode of Poker Jesus. Only to see the worst news possible. Somehow this nitwit shows up with Queen 998 and has flopped middle set. So he re-raised us pre-flop with that, and then he pot committed himself with this garbage hand. And of course scored the perfect flop to get the full double. The 4 of clubs gives us a boatload of additional outs on the turn. Hello and welcome back. I'm Anthony, and this is episode 9 of my PLO vlog. I'd like to mention a couple of viewers. One is my buddy Mike. Mike, you're a man of few words, but they're always positive. You've been coming and watching my videos since the start, and you always have something nice to say, and I really appreciate that you keep coming back and supporting the channel. And then Jcorn718, I think it was, Jcorn718 made a comment, and he said, "I look like Doug Heffernan," which is the Kevin James from King of Queens. And you know, it's funny, I get that all the time. It's unreal. I was at a Beef O'Brady's, and the waitress came up to me and she was like, "Do you know who you look like? You look like that famous actor." And I was like, "Oh yeah, Brad Pitt, I get it all the time." She's like, "No." So it's crazy how much I get it. And it's funny because he's like 6 foot something and I'm like 5 foot nothing. So it's comical to me, but you know, I was kind of going for George Costanza with hair, but for some reason I get Kevin James all the time. So thank you for leaving that comment. It never fails. It cracks me up every time. Anyway, we've got a number of 5-10 hands and some 3-6 as well in the mix. A number of opponents trying to bluff me, and me making some hero calls. So let's jump right in. We're 7-handed, playing 5-10 on a stack close to 3,000, with a mix of deeper and shorter stacks at the table. There's a couple of limpers before the small blind, the next largest stack, raises to $50. In the big blind, holding Jack 10-10-3 suited in clubs to the Jack, we decide to come along. One of the limpers comes along as well. And on a flop of 9-8-2 with 2 clubs, the small blind leads for $120. With an open-ended straight flush draw, I'm not inclined to believe this flop was beneficial for his pre-flop raising range in the slightest, and decide to put in the raise to $520. And we take it down. 8-handed at a 5-10 game, we're on the button after multiple limp. We look down at the Ace-King-10-Deuce double suited. The gaps between our cards are problematic, but we don't have any pure danglers. There's connectivity in some way between all the various cards, and having an ace and a king suited increases our playability as well. While we could raise here, I generally prefer to keep pots manageable until we see a flop, so we call, and the flop comes down 10-6 deuce with 2 hearts. When the entire field checks it over to us on the button, we're going to fire out. We flop top and bottom pair, plus the second flush draw, on a board that shouldn't hit anyone else too hard. We don't want to check it back and let someone with 9-8-7 in their hand hit a straight on us for free, and our bet on the button may seem like we're just trying to take advantage of all the checks, which could get us called lighter by some opponents. Under the gun is the only caller, and the turn comes the Jack of Diamonds, and he checks it over to us. In this spot, we've picked the queen up as an additional out to make a straight, but the Jack itself could be a bad card for us. Our opponent could have Jack 10 as part of his 4-card hand here, and we don't want to get check raised and blown off our equity, so we opt to check it back. While this will likely clue our opponent in that we might be drawing to the flush, he may also think that's all we have, so he might try to steal on the river if a heart doesn't fall. The river comes the ace of spades, and our opponent bets the full pot of $135. Given that we hold the king blocker to the nuts, and our opponent's line doesn't make a ton of sense, he check-called the flop, we both check the turn, and then he makes a full pot-sized bet on the river when I check back the turn. It doesn't look like I can call such a large bet. Having improved to 2 pair, I expect our opponent doesn't have what he's representing. So I make the call. He reveals the 9-6-5-3, so he check-called my flop bet with a gut-shot straight draw and middle pair on a flush draw flop. What a maroon. Thanks for contributing to my mortgage this month. Remember, kids, if you're going to run a bluff, at least make sure your story adds up. 8-handed, we're in the hijack with ace-jack 10-7 suited in clubs to our ace. After one limper, we limp along as well. We go 5 ways to a 9-6-5 2-club flop. When it checks to us, we have blockers to the nut straight. We also have the nut flush draw to go along with our gut shot draw. So we lit out for $50. No one bites, and we're going to take this one down.
And now a word from our sponsor.
When you have trouble falling or staying asleep, also called insomnia, finding sleep can seem impossible. But that doesn't mean you stop trying. For adults with insomnia, prescription Texas Hold'em can help. Texas Hold'em is proven in clinical studies to help people fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Do not take Texas Hold'em if you have narcolepsy. Don't drink alcohol while taking Texas Hold'em, or drive or operate heavy machinery until you feel fully awake. Texas Hold'em may lead to doing activities while not fully awake, like sports betting, firing 5 bullets to min cash, or gambling in the pits without remembering the next day. Texas Hold'em may cause sleepiness during the day. It may cause temporary leg weakness or inability to move or talk while falling asleep or waking up. Worsening depression, including suicidal thoughts, may occur. The most common side effect of Texas Hold'em is overwhelming sadness. So, ask your healthcare provider about Texas Hold'em and find sleep again. In this one, Under the Gun has straddled a 20, and it folds to us on the cutoff. We come along with the Ace-Jack 10-4 suited in clubs to our ace. We go 3 ways to a King 8-4 2-club flop. The big blind checks, but the straddler bets out for 65. With the nut flush draw plus backdoors, we make the call. We don't want to scare the big blind out, and he does call as well. The turn is a queen of clubs.
Bingo, bango, bongo.
And unfortunately, they both check it over to us. Given both opponents checked, I don't think either of them is going to have a weaker flush they're willing to call us light with. We don't want to let the board pair without charging them to get there. And I don't think there's really any other hand they might call a bet with while behind other than 2 pair or a set. So I'm setting the price to the max here, $260. Since if they miss on the river, they likely won't pay off. So I need to get that value now. The straddler is the only caller, and we go to a river, which is the 6 of diamonds. The straddler checks again, and now we have to decide if we make a smallish bet to squeeze value out of him, or if we go big. We opt for the big bet. Given we had positioned this hand, there's always a possibility we could be viewed as naked ace bluffing this spot. We're trying to bully on a scare card. Plus, if we have the nut flush, why would we make such a large bet on the river with it? Wouldn't we go smaller hoping to get a crying call? My hope with the larger bet is to make it look like I don't want to call, which might spark my opponent to make a hero call with a set or even 2 pair if they think I'm being dishonest. Unfortunately, he doesn't take the bait, but we do win this one. We're playing a newly started 3-6 game. All of our opponents are sitting on relatively smaller stacks. With one limper in the cutoff, we limp in the small blind with ace-ace, queen-3 suited in hearts to our ace. Fortunately, the aggressive big blind can't help himself and raises to 24. The limper folds and we drop the hammer, repotting to $78. He just calls. The flop comes down 9-8-5 rainbow. It's an absolutely terrible flop for our range given we limp repotted, so we check it over and our opponent seems to know this and bets 162. This is one of those way ahead or way behind spots, and we decide to err on the side of caution here and let it go. It folds to us on the cutoff with King-Jack 10-3 double suited in hearts and clubs. We decide to take advantage of only having a few opponents left and raise to $21. An aggressive short stack on the button raises to 72, and it folds back to us. Given he has a relatively short stack, and we have a fairly well-coordinated hand, we opt to repot here. Equities will be close, and we shouldn't be in too bad of shape unless he shows up with pocket kings. We make it $225, and he just calls, leaving himself $84. When the flop comes down King 9-3 with 1 club and 2 diamonds, we flop top and bottom pair, plus a gut shot straight draw and backdoor clubs. Given we're heads up, this is an easy decision to get it in, only to see the worst news possible. Somehow this nitwit shows up with Queen 9-9-8 and has flopped middle set. So he re-raised us pre-flop with that, and then he pot committed himself with this garbage hand. And of course scored the perfect flop to get the full double. The 4 of clubs gives us a boatload of additional outs on the turn, but the 5 of hearts on the river isn't one of them, and we double the fish up.
Fuck you!
There's a few limpers, and we look down at the King, Queen, Jack 3 suited to our Jack and clubs. It's fairly raggedy, and being out of position sucks, so I'm fine if you want to fold here, but a call can be alright in some cases as well. Unfortunately, we make the call, and the nitwit we just doubled up that last hand makes it $30, because why wouldn't he? We go 3 ways to an Ace-10-8 rainbow flop, giving us a nice wrap straight draw. We can hit the King, Queen, Jack, or 9 to make the nuts here. We check, and the big blind bets out $96. We're the only caller. The turn is a 9 of hearts, and we've hit our gin card.
You little scumbag! I got your name! I got your ass!
But we don't want to stop this overly aggressive player from doing what he does best, which is to bet, bet, bet. So we check it over. He disappoints us by checking back. Lesson learned, bet your own hand. The river is the 10 of diamonds, pairing the board. A pretty awful card, and we now kind of have to check, which we do. He bets the full pot of $288. Given we check the flop, turn, and river, it sure doesn't look like we're strong enough to call this river bet. So why is he betting so large? He probably doesn't have shit and he wants to fold us out. I decide to look him up, and he reveals the Queen 8-6-4 for bottom pair. God, I love this guy. At least I got some of my money back from him.
Give me my money back. Give me my motherfucking money back. I'm going to tag your ass, too. I'm going to tag your ass on Facebook, so look for me.
All right, and that's going to be a wrap for this one. I'm glad we were able to end it on a good note. And, hey, you. No. You. Yeah, you. Leave me a comment down below. Give me some questions. I want to answer some questions. I'm a man of mystery. You guys don't know anything about me. Ask me some fucking questions, man. And maybe, just maybe, I will mention you in the next episode. All right. We'll see you next week.
And now a word from Vanessa K. Polk, semi-unretired heads-up legal expert.
You know, after watching a video like this, sometimes I'll like it, sometimes I'll leave a comment, and sometimes I'll subscribe. Sometimes I'll even do all 3.